guys, welcome to Work It Wednesday. This is RG Avenue, and we're super excited that you decided to join us for today's live. If you are catching the replay, then welcome to the replay. I hope that we inspire you to get a little inky and have some fun with your sugar drops, your various different colors. It's always fun to be able to work in some mixed media on a Wednesday. So here with me in the studio, I've got David on the keyboards again. You love those keyboards, David. We've got Michelle on the saxophone. She's going to bring in that jazz vibe.
Hello.
And we've got Miss G on the silent buffer, because she's not making any noise right now. But she is definitely here, and you've got me on vocals, unfortunately. And it's time for us to bring paper to life. So let's switch over to that top view so that we can make something fun. I've got two different card layouts because I'm going to play with two different designs, okay? So we're playing today. We're just playing, guys. We're just playing. And I need like a little rubber band for my hair because I didn't put it. We are just playing today with our. I have two different versions of this. So I've got sour watermelon as my card base, and then I've got a little bit of sweet banana on there. And I have a piece of powdered sugar on one, and then I've got some watercolor paper on the other. So I haven't decided at 100% which way the cookie crumbles, but we are going to figure it out. First things first, we're going to score these guys in half so that we can get that out of the way. You are awesome. Let me just try to, I'm getting my hair out of my forehead. I'm going to take it off before we switch over to that top view.
Keeping it real.
Keeping
it real.
I am so ready to chop my hair off, my finger off, everything. Everything's coming off.
Cut it. From the guy who likes to cut.
Yeah.
He's getting cut. Wow. We got Audra Soch.
Hi, Audra.
Robin Warren, Cindy Becker.
Hey, guys. Thanks for joining me. It's going to be different today. It's going to be inky. Today, I'm actually playing with my gel press. That is how crazy it's going to be. And I'm actually going to use the coffee mug gel press set. This is one of my designs for gel press. And I'm going to be using the coffee mug version on this petite set.
How about the coffee mugs lately?
It comes with oh, this one's brand new. Do we use it? Or do you want me to grab?
Well, you want me to bring you the other one?
If we have a used one, yeah, because I feel so bad. This could belong to someone. Alright, so we're going to use the coffee mug. But I also have the gel press, the 5x7 mat, which, you know, holy Hannah. Alright, so we're going to be using this guy just for a background. I don't know, I'm feeling like the vibe. But then I'm just like,
is it gooey?
Oh yeah, it's like do you guys, who remembers the Jello Jigglers commercials? Jello Jigglers.
Let me see it. Oh yeah.
You know it's also a good sitting pad. If you need to sit down.
Sit down.
Okay, so see, this is the one that's been extra loved for sure. Okay. All right. So we're going to be using this guy as well. But first things first, we're going to create our background here on this page. So I'm going to grab some sweet banana. And I'm just going to ink up my background. I don't know why that comes out in my background. I don't know. I'm going to ink up my background with sweet banana. And then I'm going to play with a set that we've launched a little bit ago called Circle Marks. Okay? So we're going to try to add, notice I said the word try. How's everybody doing on this beautiful Wednesday?
Patricia popped on.
Hi, Patricia.
Yay. Robin said, let's get inky. Sounds like something that should be done on the front of a shirt at a crafting event.
Yeah, for sure. We are adding some sour mist. And then we're going to go ahead and stamp this. And I think I'm going to do it twice. And what's so cool is that I can kind of see, I don't mind swishing it. Just like wiggle it just a little.
I knew you were going to go with that. I knew you were going to go there with that.
All right, so we're just kind of blending those two together. And we're going to grab a wipey because now we've got some of that sweet banana on here. And we're going to ink it again for the bottom part. And I'm going to do this twice, guys, because the reason why I'm doing it twice is I'm conducting a test. You guys are a part of a test. I want to see the difference between stamping this on watercolor paper and stamping it on my powdered sugar. So I'm going to do it twice. Here we go. And now I want to spritz it with a little bit of water. So we're going to spritz it. I don't want to blend my colors. I just want them to be more pliable, okay? So now I'm going to grab my piece of watercolor paper. Sometimes what I like about this is that I can play with multiple colors, but sometimes I like to put a piece of paper over this so that I can actually take the whole thing off. So here we go. We've got our dots. We've got our background. Done. We're going to do it one more time, but now on powdered sugar. Super subtle background. We don't want anything psycho killer. I love that we can do that. And not make it so stark. Okay, so that is the purpose and the point of that is we just want a subtle image. So here we've got our sweet banana. I might get away with using just one. You know what? Let me reverse it. I don't know if I want to reverse it. Let me just do them both exactly the same or else the test is going to fail. So we're going to place that right on top of there. Swoosh those colors together. Spritz a little bit of water. And now we're going to bring in our powdered sugar. So we're just going to grab that, making sure it's on right. Now look at the difference. And this is kind of what I wanted to test, right? The watercolor paper, because it's designed to absorb more water, is going to blur my image a lot more than my powdered sugar. Our powdered sugar tends to be is really thick, which ultimately, let me zoom in just a little bit here. I said a little bit and then I did a lot. But which ultimately will absorb some water. But now we're talking about science. Now this is the living cell. Looks like a microscope living cell school project.
Yeah, I was going to say that earlier. It
Okay.
does look like that.
So super cool. All right, so that was our background for our project. Now this is going to be layered onto sweet banana. So we're doing two exactly the same. We're just, gonna check out the differences. Between the paper that we're using. But right now I'm loving this background a lot more than this one. But it also depends on if you're gonna add anything else. If I'm gonna go Psycho Killer on this one and add more, then I would probably need to use this paper. But with that single single transfer of color and design onto my powdered sugar, this one's just great. See that? How are we doing, guys? I'm gonna need like 2, one on each side.
Another one?
Yeah, because my hair's cut that way. Or a hat, either way.
Just hold it.
Sorry, I ended up not. I have to go. All right, so this is what we got. Now we're gonna play with our coffee mug. Okay, so we've got 2 different pieces again. This time we're gonna bring in a little palette creator. Let me zoom out just a little bit. A little bit more. Okay, that's about right. All right, so that gives us plenty of space. Awesome. Sorry, guys. Okay. So in this particular, guys, if you guys have them or have played with them, you'll notice that one side tends to be solid and the other side is the one that has the little opening for the coffee mug holder. It's totally up to you if you want to use that or not. I am not gonna get mad if you don't use it. But I'm gonna use a drop of sour mist, a drop of tangy orange, maybe a little bit of guava. No, let's do watermelon since we're using watermelon here. Just watermelon. I've got some watermelon here. And so I've got some tangy orange, I've got some blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to spritz in a little bit of water in each one. A couple sprays of water per each one. And now I'm going to grab my brush. And I'm going to go ahead and flicker color in there. And I'm going to do red last because it's such an intense color. So I'm going to start off with my sour mist, and I'll have a water cup here, guys, just so that you know what I'm actually doing. I don't want to
Keep them out of the loop.
Yeah, I don't want to confusify you. Now we're gonna bring in our orange. And our watermelon. Okay, now remember we're gonna do this twice, so bear with me. Now the other thing you could do, first and foremost, we can actually add a little bit of black to the edges if you wanted to have that edge dyed in. Hold on, give me a minute. All right, so you can always come back with a little bit of black ink, and you can come back and add some color to the edges here. It's gonna just give you a nice little border. It's not gonna be solid like a real stamp, but clearly that's not what we're going for here. Do you guys see what I'm doing? And since we're at it, we're going to add a little bit of black splatter. Awesome. We're going to spritz it with a little bit of water. And now we're just going to want to grab that impression, okay? So if you want a little bit more water, spritz a little bit more water and grab that impression. Who's scared?
The watercolor paper or the cardstock you're putting on?
This is the watercolor paper, so the image will be a little different. So we've got the saturation of color, we've got our outline, we've got our black fusion. Now we're going to bring in our paper. Now remember, this is watercolor paper, so it's going to blend in a little bit more. Our other one will not do as much. So let's check the other one out. Same thing, we're going to want to add our colors. And now we want to come back with our black, okay? Just around our edges. And this one I'm not going to splatter down the center. We're going to add a little bit of water to that. And you could either go, I want to see a little bit more what it's coming to look like. So we're going to go ahead and mush. This one's not going to move as much as the other. Do you see the difference?
Mm-hmm.
You're just not going to have as much movement on here because it's not watercolor paper. So it's just going to absorb down as opposed to open up. So here we have our mug. Now, if we wanted to, we can come back and add just color to this mug. And that's the beauty of watercolor paper. It will allow us to come back. Oops. We're all out of our orange. It will allow us to come back and keep adding layers, especially of color. But see how do you see how the water gets pushed back out? Because it's designed for it to do that. It's designed for it to create that merge. So, but watercolor paper allows you to come back and bring in that color. And just add the various different layers upon layers upon layers. Now don't worry about the outside saturation. I'm going to show you what we can do here. I'm actually going to bring in a little bit more of these colors so that you can see. We're going to bring in some more Cool Pool, Sour Mist.
Sour Mist. Everyone loves that color.
Yeah, it's my favorite. Sweet Lord, Lord Jesus. All right, so some tangy orange. Because I'm going to be playing with these colors a little bit more. Just a little bit more of that, and I want definitely some more orange here. And this particular palette had a little bit of Dazzling Pat. So let me show you a little bit of what that's looking like. Because it's got some sparkly. Let me see if it'll show. Can you see it? Can you see the shimmer? Alright. So now what we want to do is we're going to spritz. We're going to bring in our larger piece. Okay. Actually, now that we have the outline, let's just go ahead and bring the coffee mug, and we're gonna bring in some of those colors. Oversaturation of color, because we're just gonna add the color and try to create some movement here, just so that we can start to fill in our mug a little bit more. A little bit more sour mist. And then blend those for one more round of color here. So both give you completely different looks. I kind of want to get the end here a little bit more. So let me just bring in some of that Sour Mist Direct. But I love that we have a little bit of that outline. So bringing this guy back, we're going to add that outline to this piece as well. One more time, but just in the black.
Zuckerman said this is so totally different.
Yeah, it's interesting. We're using the same colors, but we're getting a completely different look. So here we go. We've got some of that black saturation, and we can even bring some of that black down a little bit. So just wetting that edge will create, and we want to let it fall. So again, it just lets you play with that a little bit more. We're going to end up cutting out this image, so don't be too worried about your outside edges. It just looks different. We're going to go ahead and grab some of this leftover ink here, and notice how you have a different response to the water. So it's really all going to depend on what look you're going for. I think they're both great. Sweet. All right, so we're going to go ahead and dry these guys up. Both very different looks for mixed media. I'm going to move my color palette. We want to make sure that these guys are completely dry before we start coming back with our stamping. use the same colors for both, the same treatment for both, but they're both incredibly different. Do you guys have a favorite between the two? All right, now what we're gonna do is we're gonna stamp some big blossoms on here. So I've got the big blossom stamp set, and it's time that we just bring these to life. We created the background, we've created all of our bells and whistles, and I'm gonna grab this large bloom here. And I'm also gonna use my Stamparatus to make sure that I have good impression, good saturation here.
Likes the lighter one. Crafter's Treats likes the one on regular paper.
Yeah, there's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It's just, you know. And we're gonna stamp it in black taffy. We want a really dark impression. So as a matter of fact, I might even come back and juice up my black taffy, because I want a saturation of ink for sure. This is just a different type of stamping, right? Because we are creating more of a mixed media project.
It's not like the darker one. It looks more like a oil painting almost.
Yeah, it does look a little bit like an oil or pastel color. So you're going to stamp quite a few times, go on a very deep saturation. Now remember, this one's going to stamp a lot smoother than our watercolor paper. So we've got our bloom stamped on there. We're going to do the same thing here. Let's see, we're on the target. Right about there. Seems right. All right, and also this one too, if you wanted to, you can always come back and bring in some of that black, because it's more porous. You can come back and fill that space. Nice and solid. All right, we're also going to grab, I have a sentiment stamp here while I'm at it. And I'm just going to grab the word thankful.
Crafter's Treats has a question. Does your black ink get dull when you use colored pencils over it?
No, it does not. So our black ink is a media ink, which means you can use alcohol markers and pencils, but it will not get dull mainly because it's designed for various different mediums. Alright, so we're going to come in here and we're going to trim around. Our mug.
And Adam is here.
Hey, Adam.
Adam.
So we've got both our mugs. We're going to stamp our sentiment here in a second. But I'm going to cut out that little sliver, of course. To both of these. So I've got my mugs here, which of course will be a part of this story. So you can kind of see how it starts to form. You've got your various different layers, both of which are both very different. But we're still going to be bringing in our sentiment. And of course, the various different bells and whistles that are missing for this project. All right, so we've got our mugs created. We can set those aside. We now want to bring in our sentiment to the project, and we've got some of the scraps of paper for us to do that. And we're going to go ahead and stamp the word thankful. I just want to make sure that I've got enough room here. I'm also going to add a little bit of color treatment to this before I stamp it. But you know what? Let me stamp that first, actually. And then I'll bring in the color treatment. This one is out of the set that has the 4 love words. So thankful, blessed, excited, loved.
Zuckerman says, okay, with the black flower, I now like the watercolor paper better. One.
Yeah, a little different. We're not done with them yet, but yes. Very different.
Trust the process.
Trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we are thankful. And we now need one in our regular powdered sugar. So we've got our thankful stamp. We're gonna stamp a little bit more here towards the end, but I've got some leftover juice here from my background. So I'm gonna try to revive it and bring it on to my background here. I'm gonna go ahead and still grab my gel plate, just for some background. I don't want it to be too white. So I'm gonna bring in some of that watermelon, some of that. We already have our sour mist on there. And we're just gonna place that on there for color. See how different they both grab color? So incredibly different. We can always come back and add some more to this guy. What's so great is you can actually keep watering it, and saturation just keeps happening. So different. But nothing happens to our sentiment because, again, it's designed with that in mind. So I just want to get a little bit more. They're going to be cut out, so don't freak out. All right, so we're going to let these dry here for a second. We're going to bring these guys back. And I want to bring in, there's a large bloom in this set that I want to use here, just as a coordinating element or piece. So we're going to bring in the largest bloom on the side. Now, if you don't want ink, you can always mask it because I had already created the layers. So if you don't want ink, feel free to mask it. I've got some washi tape here that I can mask it with. This is very much a creative process. So that way, if you don't want ink in those areas, you can mask it off. And I'm also going to come in with black. A couple of different times. I don't need a perfect impression. This one was sitting on something because it's got a little dent in my stamp. Alright, so that's all I need here.
It has a dimple.
It has a dimple. And this is our, so again, it just creates a little bit more of what we're looking for here. We're going to bring in our watercolored one. And this one we're going to do an ink fill like we did with the sentiment. So we just need to do it once so that we have the right shape.
Crafter's Treat says it's a beauty mark.
It's a beauty mark. Alright, so we've got that one. Again, this one's a little bit more porous. Alright, we're going to bring in some of that black dye. And you would just follow. Mainly because it's more porous and it's that watercolor paper, so it's going to want to absorb more color.
Zuckerman said the Marilyn Monroe of flowers.
Some of this will be covered by our mug, but since we don't know what part of it will be, we just want to come in here and do our entire bloom.
It's a pore filler.
This is a what is the word called? The foundation?
Yeah.
It's so satisfying.
You like painting better than coloring?
I guess so.
It's different.
It's different. All right. So we are now going to come back, and while those dry, we're going to cut these guys out. So again, it's a fun play with the various different types of paper, inks, ink pads, and how we can use them to just create something different and something fun, and it just lets you explore a little bit more. I wanted to see the difference between the two. I've actually obviously played with the two in the past, but it's kind of cool to create two cards that are exactly the same side by side, and just to see the variation that I'm gonna get when it comes to the look because of the paper. So although I know the difference and I know maybe ultimately what look I'm going for, it might be so much easier to understand when you see two different projects and the process is exactly the same, and see what look you're going for your next project, or actually what you want to play with, because sometimes it's just about us having fun and enjoying and playing with the various different types of inks that we have. And how they come to life so differently. So we've got our thankful sentiments. When in doubt,
Pop it out.
pop it out. We're gonna pop out our backgrounds onto our card bases here. Dimple butt.
Miss Marilyn.
Both very different looks. Now what we want to do is we want to bring in our mugs. What happened to my other mug? Oh, I'm like, where did it go?
Mug shot.
We're going to bring in our mugs, and then we have our thankfuls right into that space, okay? But before we do that, we're going to bring in, of course, some twine. And I'm gonna bring it in through the hoop on the coffee mug, okay? So I'm almost gonna like thread it through. Just place that where you want it. Tying bows has been a challenge lately with this finger. Who knew I needed my pinky for this? Now I'm going to go ahead and pop this guy out as well. We're going to bring in our thankful. And then we're going to bring in a bow to the front. I like to separate the two so that I can just add my bow wherever I need it versus having to, you know, land maybe in an area where you don't want it. We're going to bring in some splatters. So we've got one of our projects here done. I'm going to do the same thing here with this little piece that we have left over. I might have enough for one more round. Just barely. So we're going to go ahead and tape that down since it doesn't reach all the way through. Place our mug add our thank you, our thankful, and then come back with a bow to the front.
It's hooked on there.
Hooked onto the
So
letter. I have a black nail, and it's not because it's dirty. It's just inky.
It's just all the ink.
All right, so we've got these. We're gonna come back with some white splatter, and then we're gonna add color again. So it'll look really cool against the black. And try to be heavy with your splattering so that you can really add a little bit more of that artful feel. Really helps recreate your project. And then we're going to bring in, of course, some Dazzling Pat in that sour pineapple. The gold element will add a cool vibe. And lastly, some Dazzling Pat in our, you know what, we've got actually Dazzling Pat in watermelon. So let's bring in the color that way. Just really helps fuse your project together and make it one. Let me remove this torn up sheet so you can see the difference between the two. You've got one that's a little bit cleaner, a little bit more I guess neater is if it's the right word, like clean stamping. I guess you've got the background on there, you've got your mug which is stamped. You can also come back and add some smoke coming out of there if you wanted to create that on the gel press. You can bring that warmth to your project as well. And it looks pretty fun. I think it gives you a great opportunity. The smoke is super easy. If you're interested, you can just grab your ink pad. I'm going to show you here real quick since I've got you. You can either use the same coffee mug because ultimately all you're doing is you're going to press on. And you can use your nectar stone, I suppose it would be a great color, and just create that look. So once you have that, you can even add a couple of these. You just bring it in and it's going to see that smoke here.
Oh, that's cool. You're so clever. Crafter's Treat is asking, what is Dazzling Pat?
Dazzling Pat is our, it looks like this. This one's a used one. I've almost done one. Let me see if I have a brand new one here. I thought I did. I don't. Dazzling Pat looks like this. It comes in a crystal clear sparkle. Let me show you. I'm going to add the smoke to these here in a minute just because I think it will look really cool. But I almost need like a dark piece of cardstock. Do I not have one? Okay, I'm gonna ruin one of these guys. Is there one over there? I got one of my card club projects. Is there scraps? No.
Just use this, the back.
Oh, okay.
The back.
That'll be good.
Okay, so we've got a dark color here so you can see the difference. So Dazzling Pat comes like in a clear. It's a sparkly element that I like to add to my projects at the end. And you just shake your bottle. It's got a little marble. It moves the glitter around. It's a glittery, sparkly finish.
Pretty.
So it's got a little bit of a dazzle. But with all of my sugar drops, it was designed for me to be able to add a drop or two of color into my bottle. So I'm able to create Dazzling Pat in multiple colors, all of my sugar drop colors. So it's the same bottle, I just add a drop or two of my sugar drops. So this is like my re-inkers for my sugar cubes, which are my ink pads. So hopefully that makes sense. All right, so we're going to come back. It looks like our is dry. Our Dazzling Pat is dry, and so we're just going to bring in that swirl. Maybe even a second one over here. And we're going to add it to our project. Just a nice little swirl to be able to create that smokiness coming out of your mug. Do you see that?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do it again with this guy. Just nice and hot cup of thankfulness. Sweet. So guys, I hope that was fun. It was a lot of inkiness and testing and trying, which is typically what mixed media is. You just kind of look at it and you just play and you add colors and you add colors and you add colors, and then you erase it all and you go back and you add more colors, and it's just layers on top of layers on top of layers on top of layers that ultimately create an amazing collage that you are very proud of or happy with. And I love it. I love how we're able to create a project like this with that mixed media vibe, that it will be so unique that there will be nothing else like it. And I think that's what's so cool about mixed media, is that this is a one and only piece. Even though the process was exactly the same for both, they're a one and only piece. They are not exactly the same. And so you got to see that today. I hope that was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. And we can't wait to see you guys tomorrow again on our regular channel at 2 p.m. on Facebook. Remember to subscribe to our channel and to give us a comment, share our page with others so that we can inspire others to get their creative juices flowing. And we'll see you again here next Wednesday. Adios.